All right, here we go, everybody. Going to go ahead and start this next session. This is one that has been asked for a few times, and actually, I'm using it for multiple purposes, for both in-character, in-game reasons for my D&D, what I do play, but also for area builders. And how to create something simple and get it into game. Now, this is going to touch up on a few new things that I've not discussed previously. I've discussed this. I've done something like this prior on my old account. This is the new account. So this one is going to touch up simple Blender stuff. I've already created the frame here, but you could use this for whatever you want to import. It could be something from another asset or something you pull from something you make yourself or you purchased online, or anything like that. Could be furniture. I'm using a picture frame because it's simple, it's square, it's basic. Now, I kind of worked on this prior to kind of understand what I was getting myself into. It's been a while since I've done a placeable, but hopefully I won't run into too many hiccups. Granted, I just downloaded the tool set to use today. I absolutely hate working in the Neverwinter Nights tool set, so I try not to do things like this so much. I just like creating Blender stuff. Not a fan of the tool set. It crashes, it's janky, but hey, it's a good game. So if it's your thing, you know, no disrespect, it's your thing, just not mine. So I'm going to run into a few hiccups likely when I get that thing open. I've done this before, so it's going to kind of come to me as I go. I was going to do a stream from this, but I felt like the stream might be extra long because if I do have to troubleshoot, I'd rather not just do it live. I'd rather just be able to cut later, edit, and put this up. So hopefully we won't run into too much of that. But what we are going to be doing today is grabbing a picture frame, which I've created here. I've already UV'd it, laid it out. We're actually going to take it into Substance Painter because I want to do a little bit of texture editing. I want to kind of show you that process. Now, Substance Painter is a paid-for software by Adobe. You don't have to use it. You can use whatever you want. I'll provide some free textures with this picture frame if anybody wants to use it in the description below. This is going to go on YouTube. And so we're just going to kind of go with that. So it's just it gives me an opportunity to explain a little bit of texturing and how texturing works with PLCs and stuff like that. So that being done, here's what we're going to do today. Or that being said, today we are going to work on, let's see, let me get rid of this. This shouldn't be open. Let's go ahead and we're going to do this image today of Mr. Lord Osric Vale. He is, this is from the Baldur's Gate Sword Coast Chronicles player character. And I've asked my guild to hand me some photos of their characters so we can put it on picture frames. So you can get this into the game, put it on a wall for your guild house or whatever, something like that. If you're just watching and you have no idea what I'm talking about, pretty much this is just a friend that I'm going to put into a picture frame for his guild hall. Okay, it was either that or that, and I think I was working on Mr. Drawl Winterward here. He's another one I'm going to be doing. So today we're going to be doing Osric, and then of course I'll make these separately on the side for my team. But I just wanted to give a quick shout out because he did deliver his picture, and I'm just going to use Osric right now. I'm sure Jarl understands. And so we're going to use that one to get into the game. And I'll explain this when we get to this. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this down and let's get right into it. So this may be a two-parter. We'll see how I go. If it gets too long, I'll cut it. And then we'll jump into the second part, which will be importing it into the actual game. For now, we'll just do all the pre-setup. And I'm running the time, so let's just get right into it. So here I have a picture frame that I created. I have it UV'd laid out right here. It's fairly low poly. For a picture frame, it might be in the mid poly section, but I made it this way because sometimes if you want a giant picture frame for one thing that you want to put in, you know, it covers that too. So I have here two elements. I have the front picture frame, which I kind of created here. And it's just the one up front, kind of like this right here. And then I created a back frame because I wanted to be able to add some visual elements to that in Substance. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. So now that I have this done, I have it created here. I've already exported it. File, I went to export. I have exported this as an FBX file. You can export it as an OBJ, whatever you want. For mine, it's called PLC frame. I've exported it already. So the one thing I'm going to do now is we're going to open up Substance and we're going to start editing this in Substance Painter. So Substance, you can download for free on a trial basis run from the Adobe Creative Cloud software. and you should get a 30-day free trial. People have means of gathering stuff like this on their own, so however you want, however you get your substance is your business, no questions asked. But I'm using Substance Painter. I get it from Adobe, so my intro might be a little different if you're using an older version. Does not necessarily mean anything different really from what we're going to be doing today, so you should still be able to follow along. Now mine takes a second to load up because I have a lot of custom assets such as stuff like this, and so it takes a second. But essentially, what we're going to do now is import your object into Substance Painter so we can quickly create some bake some mesh maps. Now, those are essentially starter maps that we're going to use to create our texture. All right. And so I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to go to File. I'm going to go to New. And I'm going to just leave this as starter assets. I'm going to click Select. I'm going to find that frame, which I have it here in my working folder called PLC frame, and click Open. All right. I'm also going to turn the resolution up to 2K just to be modern. You can always downsize that. I recommend you can go 4K if this is for another project or for something else, but I'm doing 2K because it's pretty standard. And worst case scenario, you can always downsize it in Adobe Photoshop. After Effects. In Photoshop, you can downsize it there, but it's always safer just to have something bigger to work with. I recommend that always for most of the things that I work with. I always go bigger, and worst case scenario, if you have to, just go smaller, but at least you'll retain some of that quality rather than stretching out. Let's say if you make this 512 and then you have to stretch it out to 2K, you're going to lose a lot of quality there. So it's always best to go bigger, and all the ladies are like, yeah, no, it's always best to go bigger and then go down if you need to. All right, so going to click Import. Leave this all like this. You want to make sure you have your map on DirectX. That is what Neverwinter Nights 2 uses for its normal maps. All right, go ahead and click OK. It's going to bring it in here, and this is it. On the left, you're going to have your actual mesh. You can turn it around. I'm holding down Alt and the left click, and I can turn it around. If I hold down Shift, I'll move in increments like this. All right. And then on the right side here, we have our UV layout with shadows above. So if I were to hold down Shift and hold down the right click, I can move the light, and as you can see, it's moving it across the surface here and across the UVs. It's pretty interesting, pretty cool. All right. If I press F5 and F6, I can switch between perspective mode and orthographic view. So this is an orthographic view. This keeps it all in a flat. F5 will give it like a perspective view. All right. So the very first thing you want to do is you want to bake your mesh map. So what this is going to do is it's going to automatically grab the file. It's going to shoot rays, and it's going to bake whatever maps you want. And I know when I was doing Final Fantasy online modding, a lot of people preferred using this substance simply just for this only, not even for texturing. It's just for baking these maps because it bakes so quick and it's so good. So what we're going to do is go to File, and we're going to go to Mode. Actually, we're going to go to Bake Mesh Maps here. There's a shortcut here, but I'm trying not to use shortcuts today. So let's go ahead and choose Bake Mesh Maps. It's going to open up a new interface. All right. With this interface, it may look busy, but just follow along with what I'm doing, and you should get this down pretty smoothly. All right. So the first thing we want to do is choose our output size for our textures. We're going to choose 2K. All right. For dilation width, I'm going to turn that down to 16. I'm going to apply diffusion. I'm going to come down here to anti-aliasing, and I'm going to click this at 64-bit. Now, I am using a very high-end video card, but if you're using something that maybe you want to, it may take a little more time. Use something you're comfortable with. Even if it's 4K or 16, it may take a little longer depending on your video card settings. I'm just using this 64 just to go all out. All right. I'm going to come down here where it says Bake Mesh Maps. I'm going to go ahead and choose all of these. I'm going to go to Ambient Occlusion. I'm going to turn those rays all the way up to 256. I'm going to turn down my max ocular distance to 0.5. All right. And that's just going to make sure that my rays are kind of like less spread, for lack of explaining that properly. Okay. So I'm going to also go to curvature. I'm going to turn that up to about 64. Okay, I'm going to generate my method from mesh. If you were using a pre-made normal map, you would use that, but we're not using one, so let's just keep it on generated from mesh. And for position, I'm going to turn that up to 96. All right, just some random number. You can turn that up, turn that down, however you want. And I'm also going to activate height map. Now, it may not do nothing for this, what we're doing here, but it's always something that I do just to be safe, because some materials If you have height data, it will help. All right, I'm going to put relative to ray distances and leave it just like that. And then, of course, if I come down to common settings, I can change anything I need to. But these are essentially the checkboxes, means these are the maps that we're going to bake. All right. So we're going to bake all these maps for this object. And when I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and click Bake Selected Textures. And then let that kind of bake. Here we see the normal map baking. And then we get all of our maps. So it's going to go down the line and create each and every single map for us. Now, what these maps are doing is just baking internal data. It's Substance is then going to utilize these maps to create our materials. So it needs all of that information. So now that it's done, see how quick that was? It may be a little longer based on whatever settings you chose. But when you're done, go ahead and click Return to Painting Mode. And it's going to shoot you back to this regular basic UI that we were working in when we first started our project. All right. But one thing is different. If we scroll on over here to texture set settings, we'll see over here that we have now these mesh maps. Now, these are just the maps that it's baked for us. These are starter maps. So whenever we apply any of our materials, it's going to rely on the information of these maps to generate that material. If you did not bake mesh maps and you apply a material to your object, it will not come out good. It will be very bland and blah. We have here our ambient occlusion and all of our maps kind of baked in. If we look here, and it has that shadow already pre-baked. So now when I move my light around, you'll notice that it has those shadows kind of coming in. See up here? Oops, I shouldn't have done that. See, like up here, we have that shadow kind of baked into the map and stuff like that in the normal map. So what that's going to do is going to allow us to kind of create our material and to kind of get that going. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and go to my materials. Now I'm going to use some preset materials that I have. If you're using Substance, go ahead and drop anyone. If you have your assets here, you'll click here or just go to starter assets. Now, if you're using a different version, you may have to click elsewhere, but it's there. Okay, all of this stuff is here. So if I were to go to starter assets and I just go to something right here and just go to regular materials, these are just the materials that comes with regular Blender. Click regular materials, and these are just like the starter ones. There's like something like metal, brushed metal. If I drop it right over, I can apply that brushed metal, move the light across. There are different options that you can come to. If you click here, you can come down here and play with the settings, the brush lengths, and stuff like that. And just have fun with it, whatever you want to do. Now, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use something quicker because I don't want to spend forever trying to explain materials. But if you are new to Substance, I would say take a few minutes to kind of familiarize with some of the textures we have here and kind of get an idea of how they work, and stuff like that. And then we have here smart materials. Now, what smart materials are essentially a group of materials put together. Their settings and the parameters already set to create a material that's kind of bundled up in a folder called a smart material. And I'll show you an example of one smart material. For example, machinery. If I were to drop this in right over the top, it's actually a folder here, but within that folder, it has 4 different materials to make up this one smart material. Now, what makes it so smart is the fact that you can kind of come in here and play with the masks and all the options that it gives you. And if I were just to come in here, I can remove some of the texture, add some texture from different types of material. Now, it's on you to kind of go through and to play with these options and to understand them. Now, if you are learning Substance and you're interested in something like this, I recommend throwing some of these on here, going through the mask editors and understanding how they work. Now, before you know it, you'll be making your own smart materials and using your own smart masks and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that because I'm not going to use that, but I am going to use a smart material for this object. So I'm going to move my light over to about right here so I can kind of understand the shadow and the depths of what I'm putting in. And I'm going to change my assets to my smart materials, and I'm going to go ahead and use instead of starter assets, my assets, which I have here. I'm going to put this on smart material again if I check on it. And these are all of my assets that I have, that I've collected over time and I purchased and I made. There's different ones. I have a lot. Now, I kind of went through ahead of time and just chose the ones that I want to use. And they're pretty much the ones that I use a lot for these assets for I make for Neverwinter Nights too. So for mine, they're called medieval. And the medieval texture assets are the ones that I have created here that will help me kind of like just go my go-tos for a game like Neverwinter Nights 2, where these are made specifically to kind of work with the lighting system and work with a lot of the other things that I create. So I kind of have that brand going with my style, you know? And so if I just drop something over, so this is like something like this is like wood texture, right? So we have different wood ones. And these ones aren't really, so if I want to make a wood frame, I'll just drag it right over. You'll see it load on the top here. And we kind of have like a wood frame kind of going, you know? And if I don't like that one, I just undo, okay? There's different wood frames that we could use. In this case, what I want to do is I'm going to color, we're going to use wood and metal. And we're going to create this front face here. We're going to make that into like a canvas or a burlap, something during the time that would represent like what we paint on, because we're going to use that as an overlay for when we insert the image in Photoshop. All right. So it may seem like a lot, but you can also do it in GIMP. You can do it in paint.net. All right. Sorry, I had to cancel that. I have a, let me take this call right quick. Sorry. Hi. Doing a tutorial. I'll call you back. Okay. All right. All right. So gonna leave that live because I don't have time to cut stuff out. So let's go ahead and get in here. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop just a random one. I think something like this one might work. I'm gonna drop it right on top. And it's a little bright, but keep in mind it's because the way the light's hitting it. And that's like a metal one. I think there's one in here that I really like that works for me. It might be this one right here. Yeah, something like this is simple. See how it's like really metal in frame? It's got that rustic look when we zoom in here. And the reason why I'm saying that earlier I told you that these mesh maps, it's because of these mesh maps that it's able to kind of determine where the edges are at to know to give it that wear and tear, that realistic feel. And it's all of that information, the ambient occlusion, it knows that it's there, the shadow, so it knows where to put more of that dirt and dust and that wear and tear, you know? So let's go ahead and leave it at that. I'm going to leave it like that because what I want to do is I only want to supply that sort of visual. Now I'm going to do one more actually. What I'd like to do is, let me see which one is actually giving me a more, so that looks a little too runic. A little too rusty. Let me do something like this one. So I'm going to try out a few and see what we get here. This might actually work, you know, because I'm only looking at what I want to use it for, and I only want to use it for the inside frame. So let me do this one again and see what this one looks like. This one looks a little too dirty. Now I can go through, because it is a smart material, I can go through and edit this to make it much better, to take away that dirt and grime if I want to. So, but I'm trying to go with something that's going to kind of give me, like kind of a good starting point, you know? And so I'm going through a lot of these kind of quickly to see which one does it. And ultimately, I think I might just land on this one for the sake of this frame itself. If I want to later on, I can come through the layer here, open up that folder. See how it says dust? I can take off the dust, but I'm going to leave that on. I think the cavity dark is the cavity is fine. What's giving me is this scratches here. I don't want a lot of scratches because I don't want this looking too worn down. So I'm going to turn down some of these scratches, maybe just one of those sharp objects. Damage on the edges, I can keep that because over time that would be real. And the rough grind, I want to take off. So I want to make this much more less rough. See the grind here? I want to make that like that. The grinded effect, I'm going to keep on. And then really what this darkness here is just like a mask, but I don't want to go through forever and kind of go through that. So playing with this material, there's lots of things that I can take on and take off. I'm just going to leave that on because what I want to do is I'm going to use this as my primary frame material. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and now that I have the layered smart material, I'm going to say on here, I'm going to make a black mask. And what that's going to do is it's going to hide everything because I want to paint in the areas in which I want to apply this texture to. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, after I click that, I'm going to come over here to my left side and count down to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the fifth one down is called polygon fill. All right. We're going to click polygon fill. And if you notice, our mask is black. Black means everything is hidden. But if we use white paint and it automatically selects it here, there's black and there's white. I choose white paint. Now, whatever I paint white will reveal whatever part of that metal that I want on this mesh. All right. So for example, if I were to just to grab it here and just start coloring in squarely, I'm painting in white, which then reveals the effect of this layer, which is medieval metal. All right, I'm going to undo that. Now there's a quick way to do this. You can do it manually by brushing it in, or you can do this. You can select options here called mesh fill, and we're going to use UV chunk fill. Now what that's going to do is it's automatically going to reveal the UVs here. See if you look here, and what I can do is I can go ahead and fill in parts of this mesh by the UV chunks. And the only part I want to fill, I can use the left or right side. I'm going to use this frame. So see how I'm clicking here and I'm kind of coming through and I'm choosing where I want to fill in with this texture, with this metal frame. And I want to pretty much choose everything here. I want to choose the, this area here. Or if I want to, I can go ahead and choose the outside frame here, 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 or I can just kind of hold down and just kind of do that. And if, as you can see, I'm doing it here. So if I were to like fill in the chunks here, it would do it same thing on the left or right side. So you can decide what you want to fill in the back side, and just like that. Okay. And so now that I've done that, what I'm going to do now is go ahead and make this part here wood. So I'm going to create a new texture. I'm going to come up here and make sure I'm on here. I'm actually going to type in, oops, I'm going to make sure I click off of that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and type in wood. All right. Now I know the wood that I want to use, so I'm just going to go to where I have it. If you're using Blender, if you're using Substance and you have the pre-made, there's some pre-made woods there. I'm going to use this one called Polygon wood. All right. If you need this wood for this frame, let me know. I will reach out and I will give you this wood file. Okay. I'm going to drop this again right over, and it's going to make everything wood. But we're going to do the exact same thing we did with the previous layer to kind of mask out what we want to paint wood and what we don't. So what I'm going to come do is I'm going to come underneath here. I'm going to go ahead and click add black mask. Same thing. All right. Leave it at white. We're again on polygon fill. All right. And we're going to go ahead and paint in what we want to be wood. All right. And I'm just going to paint in these little areas. Now, if you have a very high detailed mesh, it may take you a little bit longer. And then you can kind of use this to kind of work with it, or however you want to do it. See, I misclicked there. So, and of course, make sure you get everything. That includes the inside too, because sometimes just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's there. All right. So I'm going to come through and I'm going to click all of, oops, I did that again. I'm going to click the wood. And then now we have like wood in front of our metal. Now it doesn't look that great, but this is a tutorial. This is not in any way to be anything great or awesome. If you're using a starter, quickly, I'm going to show you some cool ones. If you're using to starter pack, type in dark steel. I think there's a dark steel that's considered a starter asset here that you can use. Just right here, dark steel actually does a pretty good job. See something like this, and it kind of gives you that sheen, something metal. And if I were to put dark steel in there as a starter asset, if you feel like maybe that's a little bit too much shine, what you can do is open up the folder, go to the top layer, add a new fill layer here. Add a fill layer. This is like another layer on top. Turn down everything. You just want it to affect what option? You want it to affect the roughness and metalness. And you can turn up the roughness some or turn up the roughness down. See how I'm doing that there? I can turn the metalness a little bit down here too. And you can change up the way that metal, and you can change up the entire metal. It's more like a mirroring metal now. But if I were to come here and turn the roughness up here and see how now it's more like a more subtle, obviously that's a little bit too much turn down. If I move my light around, that's just one option. There are other options you can use. Let me just kind of get rid of the entire dark steel. There's, different ones you can use if you want, so there's different metals. You can just type in metal here. And if I were to go to, go to my assets, I might have a few metals. Oops, I typed in met pack. All right. So we're going to click a metal. If I were just to drag one over, this is like a rusty metal for making maybe something that's been there for a while, an old frame. There you go. Something like, let's see, this has paint on it already. There's a few that you can use that will kind of like, even that's pretty decent, I think, for a picture frame, especially if it's going to be like in a castle or something like that. You can kind of play around with it. There's different types. I know I'm just kind of messing around now. Trying to see, this has grading with it. You know, something like this even works. So even if I wanted to keep this, and the reason why I'm showing you this is because I'm going to show you how to change if you changed your mind, how to make that work for you. So I'm going to put this on the bottom here. And let's say I went with this initially. I'm like, I don't really like this. I want to change it out, but I don't want to have to redo the masking and everything like that. What you can do is turn on the one you do like. For example, if I do like this one, what I can do is same thing, add a black mask, go into this mask, right click and put copy, or I can put down here, I can put, let's see, copy mask, and then turn it off, come into this one, and then right click on that mask and put, where is it at? Should be paste into mask. And now we've applied the same mask to this new metal. All right. And then now we have this. So we've moved the mask around. Okay. So it's all up to you how you want to go about it. If I want to do the same thing here, if I wanted to make this wood part, if I wanted to copy that mask, so I go here and I go to copy mask. Oops, I got to find it. And then if I click, turn it off, turn this one off. And if I paste into this mask, now that part's there. And now we have two parts. Okay, just like that. So now we have a picture frame. Okay. Now I'm still on the fence of which one I really like the best. So I'm just going to kind of go with the one that I've used here. I'm going to use just one here. I'm going to clear that mask out. I'm going to go to, actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, I'm going to clear the mask. I'm going to repaint in the entire mask except for the front. So I'm going to do something simple like that. Now, I may do this project on my own separately because I know there's a certain look I want for the guild that I'm making this for. But for the sake of this tutorial, let's go ahead and do it like this. Let's go ahead and not confuse ourselves. Let's delete everything and start from scratch. I'm going to simply come up here. I'm going to go to my assets. All right. I'm going to go back to my medieval. All right. And I apologize if I'm giving you the runaround. I'm just kind of showing you what can be done, different things like that. I do like this one right here. What I'm going to do now is simply go on the very top here. I'm going to go ahead. Actually, I'm going to stay on the item itself. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to go to add a filter. All right. I'm going to type here HSL. I'm going to add an HSL. I don't know. That should be it right there. I'm going to turn down that saturation because I want to make this just metal like this. Okay. Something like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add that black mask, but instead I'm just going to add a white mask. And that means everything's revealed. Okay. Everything is showing. Hopefully I'm not confusing you. All right. I'm going to add this white mask because that means everything's revealed. Remember, if we remember correctly, when you paint things black, they hide it. But if you paint things white, they reveal it. So in this case, it's easier if I paint it all white, come in here, go back to my polygon fill and just paint out what I want to hide instead. All right. And I want to hide this area right here, this little thing right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure my paint is now black. See up here, I'm going to make it black and hide that little area because what I want to do is I want to make that the canvas that's going to be where the painting goes. All right. I'm going to show you another little trick afterward, but not right now. We're going to make this very simple. I want to show you how you can get cool little like engravings in here, and we'll call that like advanced techniques. And then we'll get to that toward the end part. So this one's going to be a fairly quick tutorial because we're almost done. I just wanted to kind of show you what you can do in Substance. If you're making this, I'm going to supply the blend file and everything you can do to make your own picture frame. All right, go into Substance and do this. If not, you can use mine, but if you have Substance available, and like I said, you can download it from Adobe, get the 30-day free trial to kind of get used to it. I pay I think I pay $20 a month for the subscription. If you're a student somewhere, you can use your student ID and get it even cheaper. And it's not just for this. You get the 3D pack with Adobe, which is a few things. So if this is something you're very much interested in, that's good. I mean, it's fun to use. Okay. So I'm going to leave this like this. What I'm going to do now is go and find something like a canvas. Now, I don't know if I have one. So I'm going to go to something like, I think under starter assets, and I'm just going to go to materials. All right. And I'm going to look for something like burlap. See, there's concrete here. There's concrete. And I'm going to look for like fabric, but maybe, I don't know if I have a canvas. Let's see if there is a canvas. No. There's paper, grainy paper, paper card, different stuff, concrete, carbon. I don't know if paper will work. Let's see what this looks like. See, it kind of gives it like this little paper effect. Maybe that can work. if we really kind of, if I change that, so I can come up here into the material settings and change the color to more of like a yellow based, like maybe like a canvas. So, cause it would be a little off white, something like that. And then if I wanted to, I can kind of come in here and add a, like, I don't want to add a mask because I don't want to confuse anybody with that. So I'm going to do something simple like this. All right. There are other options I can play with here. I'm going to close that off. If I click the material, I can come in here and play with some other options like the grain density. So I can turn it up, turn it down, how dense you want it to be. See how I'm coming in here. And so I can turn that however I want. There's the intensity of the grain. I can turn it up or down. Something like that could work. I'm only doing this for effect. The thickness of the paper. We want this to be like a canvas, so maybe a little bit thick, Let's see. I'm not actually making a canvas. I'm sure you can make one. By the way, Substance materials, you can download numerous sites. Even Adobe has free materials you can use, so you might be able to find something like that. Now what I'm going to do is going to do the old-fashioned trick of hiding everything by the black mask, going into my polygon fill, going to white paint, and revealing the part that I want this to affect, which will be here. And just like that, we have our picture frame. Okay, it's very, very rustic. Like I said, you don't have to, you can choose whatever material you want. I chose this one. I know I'm going to probably piss people off right now by choosing one more, but this is a poly, one that I like, your assets. And if I type in poly, oh, I have to make sure it's on smart materials. So if I go to smart materials and type in poly, and, I'll link to where you can purchase these off ArtStation if you're into it. I really recommend these ones. Very great. Really great. So there's iron, there's grinded metal, and something like this could actually help too. See how it's like, it's really like it. Now that's more of a weapon, like a sword, but there's different ones. And even this one looks good. If we can get rid of the rust here by going into it and just typing in, getting rid of the rust here. I think the rust and the dirt and maybe the damage. We can keep the damages on there if we like. I'm going a little slow, so I'm probably skipping 2 down in my video, likely. No? Okay. I know when it slows down, it tends to do that, but you can come down here and take away some of, I think it's oxidation. So see how I'm kind of like, so if I keep the oxidation on, that adds a little bit of dirt. Rust, turn that on and off. That's the one we don't want. We don't need a rusty picture, because why is there a rusty picture in a guild hall? Makes no sense. Even this makes no sense really, because why is it so black and dirty? So I'm just going to keep on what I have here, because at least this kind of gives it, I can come through if I want to later on, and I can come to the dirt occlusion and take off a lot of stuff. I think mainly we're looking at the stuff that causes this grunginess, but that's gonna, that means I have to kind of go through and find where that's at. And it's really like a darkness. So I'm going to leave it like that. I'm just going to leave it. Screw it. All right. And let's go into our paper. So there it is right there. We have our texture. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I would like to submit this material for my export. All right. Let's go look at this at an angle. Something simple like that. If I wanted to, maybe I can turn this down a little bit. Now I can always do this in Photoshop too. To kind of give this that canvas feel. There we go, something like that. Now we're ready to export these textures and put these together in Photoshop, so that way we can get it on the placeable and put it in game. Now I know this was a kind of tedious and long sort of thing to kind of watch through, but hopefully it may inspire you to kind of get into Substance and bring it in your, if you're making something in Blender, it could be using just square, using square. This was made purely entirely with just using blocks. I made the block, made another block, extruded it, made another block, extruded it, pushed it in, simple stuff like that. All right. There's also YouTube videos where you can learn how to create a picture frame rather easily. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go to File. I'm going to export these textures now. All right. I'm going to leave all this alone. I'm going to export as if I'm totally new to Substance. I do have my own exporter for like a normal map only, mesh maps, Neverwinter Nights 2 export settings. I'm going to go ahead and leave this as if you're doing the regular, because I'm going to explain to you how some of these textures work in the next iteration here. So I'm going to leave this on PBR metallic roughness, which should be the default. All right. I'm going to leave this at PNG 8 bits. All right. I'm going to put this at 2K. You can leave it based on texture size, because remember we chose 2K, but just as, and I'm going to leave this as infinite, dilation infinite, just as is. All right. If we click output template, we can create templates here of what we want to export. Now, this in itself requires a little bit of studying. It's not hard to grasp, but you can probably watch a YouTube video where someone can explain it, and you can create your own channels. And pretty much each one has its own, it automatically renames the map for you based off an algorithm here you have to put in. And you can choose the color of the map, RGB. You can choose what channels it gives out, and you can also create channel packed maps. Now, not going to confuse you by explaining all that stuff right now if that's not your jig, but it's something that can benefit you later on if you get more and more into creating your own textures and exporting. All right. List of exports. That's what it's telling us, what it's going to give us. I'm going to put export. All right. It's going to say export it correctly. Here's the name of the export, PLC frame. I'm going to go to output directory. Mind you, mine's pretty busy because I have a lot of things. So I'm just going to go find that. So it's called PLC. So I'm typing in P here, and I got to go find it right quick. Now, normally if I have a clean one, you wouldn't see all this stuff. Now mine's right here, PLC frame. It should have given me like 5 textures. I'm going to grab all those by holding down shift and selecting, hit Control X to cut those. And I'm going to go ahead into my working directory, which is over here, PLC tutorial. And I'm going to paste those into there. All right. And just like that, we're done. I'm going to go ahead and save out this file just for the hell of it, in case I come back to it, which I plan to. I'm going to click save. I have an area where I save all of my things at, so I'm going to call this PLC picture frame. If you plan to come into this, if you're following along, I recommend you do the same. All right, I'm going to click save, and just like that, I'm going to close it because I can utilize the RAM for other things. All right, so here we have the picture frame back in Blender. All right. I hope I'm not going too fast. I hope, seriously, this is, even if you're just watching, you're kind of getting an idea of what we're trying to accomplish here. All right. Now, I know that if you're like, well, I already have textures, then that whole last bit was just for your entertainment. If at all it was entertaining, I should have juggled. I can do some card tricks next time, but hopefully that entertained you, or that was something interesting to watch, or gave you a familiarization with Adobe Substance Painter. All right. So we're back in Blender. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Shader Editor. And then let's assume you don't have a shader. Let's assume that's empty and you got nothing there. You got nothing. All right. So that means your material, you don't have one of these. So I'm going to delete the material. Let's assume you don't even have a material with your object. All right. So if you notice, what happened is I deleted it, and that material setup that makes up this object has been gone, deleted, zip, zap, door, whatever. Bye. All right. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and click the plus. All right. I've only had 1 cup of coffee, by the way. It was a good cup of coffee. Actually, I had my cup of coffee in a glass because I was too lazy to wash my coffee mugs. Maybe I shouldn't be sharing that because it makes me sound lazy. But how can I be lazy if I'm doing this? You know, like, this requires setup. Like, I have to set up my lights. I got to get everything set up. I got to turn off the fan, and I'm hot. All right. So I mean that like hot, like temperature wise. Like, I'm trying to like this. Why am I explaining this? Anyways, back to this. So what we're going to do is go ahead and hit the plus button here. What that's going to do is it's going to allow us to add a slot for material. That does not mean we have a material yet. It means we have a slot for a material that we're going to utilize. So what we're going to do here is click new, and now we have a material. And now you should get this little pop-up here. All right. What this pop-up means is the following. So we have a principled BSDF material here. That's the material we're using. There are different types of materials, but by standard, this is what you're going to get. This, for the most part, a lot of times you'll be using. There are different materials, but that's more advanced, and we won't be using something like that, if at all, ever, for Neverwinter Nights 2. All right. And then we have this little area called material output. Now, what is material output? This is the material output. Whatever we plug into this material will output to our surface area, because we see here, it says surface. If these aren't connected, nothing will be output. If I were to change the base color of the material to a really hot pink, nothing happens unless I connect it to the surface, which is our output here, and I come over here to this little area called viewport shading. That allows our viewport to view the shading that we're doing here, our shader. This is our material, aka we can just say shader right here. If I were to change this, it changes the color of the material. That's the base color, okay? So I'm going to leave it just like that, because what we're going to do is we actually are going to plug in our own materials to make up our output here, or plug in our own images, which we just exported from Substance, our diffuse map, our normal map, our spec map. We're going to plug all that in into this material, and then that should obviously show up in the output here that we can use when we export. Those will already be set up in the game for us, okay? So to do that, what we're gonna have to do is open up Photoshop. If you have GIMP, use GIMP. If you have any other photo editor, use that. An alternative option is called Photopia. If you go to photopia.com, you will get this, and this is in itself Photoshop online, and it works really well. I've explained it in the past. I don't believe you'll have capabilities to export to DDS, but for the sake of this tutorial, when you export to TGA, and it's going to be a higher, heavier file size, but for the sake of learning and understanding how this works, I recommend exporting to TGA. If not, you can export as JPEGs and use another program to export or to convert those to DDS format. All right, I'm not going to explain what all that means yet. Okay, I don't want to overwhelm. So let's go ahead and open up our textures. So what we need for Neverwinter Nights 2 is a normal map and a diffuse map. We also need an alpha channel map and a specular map. All right, so I'm going to do this. I am not a crook. No, I'm doing this to try to explain this properly. All right. So we have our diffuse map and our normal map. Those are the only two maps that we will put in for this placeable. We can put a tint map if we choose, but we're not going to be creating tint maps today. All right. And then we have our other two maps, which is an alpha channel map and a specular map. I was thinking right now, like because the way I want to do this, if I do this, it's going to look like I'm flipping you off, and I don't want to do that. It's not good for, relations. So we have an alpha channel mask and a specular mask. All right. So here's a diffuse. Here's our normal. I'm going to do like this instead. In the alpha channel of our diffuse map, we have, I'm going to flip you off again, aren't I? Okay. In the alpha channel of our diffuse map, we tuck in, in the alpha channel of our diffuse map, that's where we tuck in our transparency map. Boop. All right. And in the normal map, in the alpha channel, we tuck in our specular map. So you only have two maps. I'm doing this. Hopefully that explains. All right. Two maps. I'm going to flip you off one way or another, aren't I? All right. You know what? Let me just show you. All right. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and open up let's create our diffuse map first. All right. So to do that, I'm going to come to where I have my maps here. And this is the texture that we baked from Substance. This is it right here. Remember the material here? We made that burlap sort of effect, that paper effect. All right. And then what we have here is our basic, our base color map. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you slowly. This is a very slower tutorial on this end because I would like you to understand how mapping works for here. All right. So my foot fell asleep, by the way, and I'm afraid to get up because of what's going to happen. But here I go. Oh my gosh. It's going to hit me in a little bit. So, all right. So what I want to do is I'm going to plug in our diffuse map, but what part do we plug that into for it to show? There is no diffuse here, for I have not found my diffuse. So this is actually your diffuse base color. It's just a base color map. All right. Base color is your diffuse map, also known as base color map, also known as an albedo map. But for the sake of this game, we'll call it diffuse map. All right. So what we want to do here is we are going to go to add. Oh man, I never go here. Texture. All right. And we're going to go to, I don't even think it's here. Image texture. All right. And drop it right here. Now I'm not using a shortcut, but if you want to use a shortcut, Shift A to add, S to search, type in image texture, and that's another way to find Shift A to add, S to search, and that helps you having to go through all this stuff. So that's our image texture. What image texture are we talking about, dude? Like you're throwing me off. Well, we're gonna make it right now, dude. All right, so this is what it's called, PLC frame based color. I'm gonna click Control Alt S. All right, save as. In the working directory, I'm going to call this Osric frame D for diffuse map. All right, that's the standard algorithm, naming algorithm for most games, most things online. D for diffuse map. I'm going to change this to a DDS. Now, if you do not have DDS, that usually you should. If you're using CC, it kind of, you have to download this from the Adobe. Sorry, I had to move. My foot just couldn't take it anymore. My leg. So you have to download the DDS texture tools from NVIDIA's website. You can just type it in there, search NVIDIA DDS texture tools, and you'll download them, install them, and it'll allow you to use these texture tools to export and import. All right. If you do not have those, you can always export to TGA. All right. Now keep in mind, Targa files are uncompressed. What does that mean? It means that they do not compress. That means they are higher quality, but they take a lot more space, but they work for video games. You can use Targa for video games. Targa and DDS. Targa will automatically, you don't need a plugin for that. But keep in mind, anybody who knows this information, if you supply them Targa files, they're gonna be like, brah, nah, like, not my world. Like, they'll kick that shit back probably because it's really high end. Now, I've used Targa files in the past, depending on what I'm trying to achieve. There are times when you want to use a Targa file. There are times when you just shouldn't for hard drive space, because Targa files are they take up about 4 times the amount of hard drive space than a DDS does, because a DDS really compresses those textures with retaining as much of the quality as possible for the sake of, you know, playing in video games. DDS are mainly used for video games. All right. So if I didn't confuse you there, just go ahead and click Targa or choose DDS. I'm going to choose DDS. If you don't have any of those options available, save it as a JPEG. Later on, we can always run it through a program to convert them to DDS. Actually, yeah, save it as a JPEG or a PNG before JPEG. So if you have the option, choose PNG. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Osric Frame D. I'm going to click Save. My little UI is going to pop up here of all my information. I don't have to worry about anything. All I want to do is go to Format and choose BC3 as our format and click Save. Now that I've done that, I want to go back here to our shader and load that as our base color / diffuse / albedo map. And what that's going to do is automatically going to override any color that I've chosen here. If I make that blue, if I go to open an image for here and I go to that Osric Frame D, all right, and nothing happens right away, all right. It's like nothing at all. Like, wait, why isn't this showing? No, it's because we have to plug it in. Remember, this is the shader. This is our surface over here. If there's nothing plugged into it, it won't show. But if I grab this and I plug it in, it's going to go to the shader and now show on our surface. All right. And so there it is right there. Okay. So now that we have that done, oops, sorry. Had it itchy. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to create another texture, because we need a normal map. So if you look down here, we have nothing plugged in the normal map, and you can't really, there's no slider for that. There's no information, you know, for any of that. So what we're going to do is quickly create that a normal map, which we have exported here. All right, I'm going to drop it in here, and this is our normal map. All right. Now we did export as DirectX. So we know that's correct. All right. If we zoom in, that's what it looks like. And then what we're going to do is, I'm doing this one at a time because we're going to come back and edit these maps in a second, but I want to explain as I go. This is a normal map. What is a normal map? I really can't explain that without getting too technical and without going cross-eyed myself. Essentially, this map is a special type of map. It has a special type of coloring, and it pretty much helps define where light hits the object and how the object responds to space and light and how the game engine reacts to that. So if you just take a quick look at it, you kind of get an idea of what it is just by, you kind of see, oh, okay, it has the shadows and information. It's kind of like the 3D objects. So if we look at the diffuse map, it's pretty plain, it's pretty flat. See, but if I were to grab this map, copy it, and just paste it over, and just put this on something like overlay, we can kind of see how it's adding to it. See how it adds the texture to it now. So when these two maps, when they work together and the game engine reads them, it's going to read the color, the base color, but it's also going to understand how light's going to insert those grooves and how it's going to affect it. Now, that's not entirely true by itself because it relies on a specular map, but we're not getting into that right now. Give me like 5 minutes. All right. So with this normal map, What we're gonna do is just save it as is. I'm gonna hit Control Alt S to save. I'm gonna save that also as a DDS. All right. I'm gonna name it this. I'm gonna click this, but make sure to click off of it. All right. That way, because if you click here and still name it here, it still has it highlighted, so it's gonna override that. I click it just to help me get the name. Then I click and change this to in. Osric frame in. Click save. Same thing. If you still have the same Photoshop session in, it will bring up the same UI. All the settings are the same. BC3. I'm just going to click save. All right. Let's come back into Blender and let's plug that image in. All right. So we have 2 options or 3 options of doing this now. We can go to add. All right. Texture. Image texture. Or if you're cool, you'll put Shift A, S, and type in image texture. All right. Or if you want, grab this one, hit Shift D to duplicate it and drop it right here. Now, I recommend dropping it close to where the normal's at, but give yourself a little space because I'm going to add something right here very soon to help the material understand that this image file is not just a regular image. This thing's purple. So this thing's it's got to explain why is it purple, and there's a tool or a node that we put in here to explain that to the material so it reads it properly. I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's incorrect and when it's correct. So I'm going to drop this down here and move on a little bit, about right there. All right. I'm going to go ahead and load up my image, which is my normal map. Click open image, and then I'm just going to plug it in directly. And it looks weird, right? I mean, I know you can't really tell, but it really is not. It's not reading it properly. All right. Now, if I were to come here, this is where you can actually view it, but I have to add a light and I don't want to go through all that. So the reason why that is because A, the settings on the image are not correct. This is not a regular sRGB image. That's a color image. This isn't. This is a non-colored image, which means this is not to be read as a regular colored image. It's a special type of image. It's a special type of map. Just looking at it, you can tell it's a special type of map. The whole damn thing is purple. All right. So we have to tell the engine that this is non-color. And it's going to give it a little bit of improvement, but still it's not reading it correctly because we have to disconnect this and we have to, let's leave it connected. What we have to do is add another node that tells between the image and the material. There has to be a halfway communicator there to say, hey, this image coming in from my left and I'm giving you on my right is not a regular image. This is a normal map. So read it accordingly. All right. So what we're going to do is go to add. And I'm not even sure where this one's at, to be honest. I never used this. So bear with me. I think it's a vector. No. Yeah. So add a vector, normal map. All right. And we're going to drop it right between here. Now, if you do that, it's automatically going to know what you're trying to achieve and bloop, automatically connect it for you. Now, in the opposite chance that you did not do that and you just dropped it here, grab it here and you can still put it in like that. It will slide in between. If you didn't do that and you just like, screw it, I like making life hard for myself. Well, actually, if you want to be the cool guy, hit Shift A, S, type in normal map and you're the cool guy and drop it in there. Okay. If you didn't and you want to be the kind of cool guy, but doesn't like following the rules, but like to teeter on the edge, that's fine. You can be that guy. Grab it here, unplug this, put it right here, plug that in, and plug that in. Why would you want to take that long? I don't know. Your life is your life. I don't judge. It's whatever you want to do, okay? And then what we're going to do is going to ask you to choose the UV map that you want to associate this with. Obviously, we only have one map, UV there. And I can turn up the strength if I want to. See how I'm turning up the strength? Now, this is for preview only, if I want to see how it's affecting. But see how I'm turning up the strength? Now it's reading that map correctly. It's not interfering with the color no more, and it's understanding how to read it. Now, I'm just going to leave that at 1. But actually, I'll make that 2 just so you can kind of understand it. Now, that does not matter. Having that setup, that setting, does not matter for when you export to the game. That's just internal because it's the map setting for the game requires you to adjust different parameters such as the material and stuff like that. All right. So what I'm going to do now is remember I told you we have these 2 maps done, which is the diffuse and material and normal. Now we have to tuck in the alpha channel information and the specular information. But we're not going to create 2 new maps for that. We're going to use these 2 maps and we're going to tuck that alpha channel in. We're going to tuck that opacity, the transparency into the alpha channel of our diffuse, into this channel. And we put that into the alpha information. All right. So let's go to that map again. Actually, I can close these off because I renamed them. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open them up again right here because I renamed them. So I made new copies, and this one's called Osric Frame D. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to channel and click alpha. Now, if we remember Substance Painter, remember how I explained to you, when you make everything black, it hides a part of that texture. If you make it pure white, such as this entire alpha channel, it reveals the entire texture. Case in point, let me show you. So what I'm going to do is I don't want this canvas to show. I'm going to grab a brush. I'm going to simply make this a hard brush. I'm going to make this, see how white means everything on this, everything on this shows because everything's painted white. Now, if I grab a brush and I draw a giant S for Superman or Super Jude, all right, and I click here, nothing's changed. But if I were to save this now, all right, this is now my new alpha information. Black means things are hidden. So with Within Shield, there's an S secretly hidden there. There's an S that's secretly in the background doing its thing. And what that's going to tell the engine is, I need you to hide the portions that are black. All right. So I'm going to save this again. Just save it as a DDS. See, it even shows you right here. It says, wait, here's your color map. That's your alpha channel. When you combine them together, you get this effect. That black is going to cut through the material and say, don't show me. When is this useful? We have a cloak. Let's say this is a cloak and we want wears and tears, like rips on the bottom of the cloak. We would draw those rips in on the alpha channel. We would just draw them in, the rips and tears, or maybe there's circles on the belt buckle and you want to draw those little boop, 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 little circles. That's the sound of drawing circles. Boop, 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 boop. That you can look that up on Wikipedia. All right. So we would paint that in, but in this case, I'm just showing you for example what it's going to look like. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to click save. What I'm going to do is come into Blender here. All right. Now, if I disconnect the image and reconnect it, nothing happens. If I reload the image, it has an S in the middle of it. But wait, that's supposed to be transparency, Jude. What are you up to, man? What's your game? All right. So I'm telling you right now, the reason why that's showing is because it's reading both the channel together. Now, let me make sure I exported this correctly. Yeah, actually, that doesn't matter how I exported it. So if I want that to be alpha information, I've got to drag it because remember, of our map, we have our color channel and our alpha channel. When I say color channel, this is our color channel. And this is our alpha channel. Color is RGB, red, green, and blue. If you're working in GIMP, your red, green, and blue make up your color channel. Then you have your alpha channel. You only get one alpha channel, all right? That's your transparency. We've tucked our alpha information, our transparency information into the alpha channel of the diffuse map, all right? And so with that being done, what we have to do is tell the material that the alpha channel actually retains information. But what information does it retain, dude? Is it metallic? No. Is it specular information? No. Is it roughness? Nope. It's actually alpha information. Okay. But why is it not showing correctly here? Well, that's because down here in Blender, under, let's see, under materials, for our material, okay, what we're going to do is come over here to settings and send our blend mode to alpha clip, or actually alpha hashed. It's one of these. Let's see, which one is it? Shadow mode. Let's go to alpha hashed. It's one of them. Alpha clip. Alpha. I gotta. Sometimes it changes. Let's hold on. Let's see. Alpha hashed. And then let me reload this again. Not sure what's going on here. Alpha pre-multiplied. I'm wondering if it really is showing through now. I think it is. I'm not being able to tell. It actually is. So if you look through here, do you see what's going on here? It's just because of the way the material, because this back face is still showing this right here. So if I were to grab this face right quick, these faces, and just delete those. See how it's still there, the transparency, it's back there. So I know this is probably not the best way to show you, but essentially what we have going on here is that back. I'm going to leave this on alpha hashed, actually. All right. Because the alpha channel is showing, it's hard to tell because of there's something behind it. So if you see me do this, see how I'm grabbing this? So it's hiding part of that S, because right here, that part of that S is going over here. This is the part that S is revealing. It's hiding it. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me show you another example, because that was probably a bad example. Let me go ahead and draw a giant circle right here. All right. So I'm going to come here, and it's about right there. And I'm going to save that again. All right. I'm going to save it, and it's a big hole into the canvas. All right. So underneath it should reveal the frame, the metal frame behind it. All right. So I'm going to click save. All right. I'm going to come back in here in Blender, and I'm going to go ahead and unplug this. All right. Actually, I'm just going to reload the texture. That's what you got to do. And now that I've done that, see how plug that alpha information to alpha. And now it shows there's a hole there. You know, it's actually there. See, if we look here, see that's the back one right there. And this is the front one. It's really confusing to explain, but if you look really close here, you'll see exactly what I mean. All right. Let me see if I can turn on some cavities here. So if I were to come in here and texture. All right. Turn on the cavity a little bit. Let me see if that shows. No. I hope you understand what I'm trying to achieve there, but you can see that's transparent. So whatever I put in that picture is hidden. That is where your transparency channel goes for your diffuse map for Neverwinter Nights 2. Hopefully that explains how that works. Having alpha channel information. I keep saying alpha because that's what the term is called for transparency usually, and that's just my design brain going on. But your transparency opacity map should be tucked into the alpha channel of your diffuse map. That is what you need to take away from this entire thing right here. Your transparency / opacity map should be tucked into the alpha channel of your diffuse map. Write that down. All right. Now that we're done with that, this actually doesn't have any alpha information. There really is no transparency, so I'm going to make that pure white as it was and save it. The only reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted to show you how that works. So there really is no alpha information. So if I reload the thing, this is what it should look like anyway. Okay? So now that is done, there's one more thing that I need to do. I'll do towards the end. But now let's go ahead and find out where our spec map goes. Because we have a diffuse map, a normal map, and a specular map. But wait, Jude, we only use 2 maps, you said. A diffuse map and normal map. Where the F does a spec map go? You know, I'll show you where it goes. All right. So the spec map goes into the alpha channel of our normal map. Remember, transparency and opacity get tucked into the alpha channel of the diffuse map. Our specular information gets tucked into the alpha channel of our normal map. So I'm loading up the normal map here. And if we look at our alpha channel, it's pure white. This is bad. And I'll tell you why. Because the specular channel, this channel right here, how the game reads this map, it tells the map, the more white you are, the more light reflects like a mirror, like metalness, like crisp. You know what I mean? So if I were to put this in game all white, you're not going to get any detail because it's going to be just shine, pure shine. A specular map controls, and you may have to Google this because I may not explain this correctly. So just what is a spec map and how does it work? Okay. A specular map controls how light works from an object. So I want to bring up right quick. I'm going to use this bad boy to help me show. Okay. So I'm going to go to new chat. All right. Actually, right here, I'm going to put, can you explain what a specular map is in the simplest term for video games? And it's hopefully it does that for us. Okay. Specular map is how shiny something looks in a video game. You can read, but I'll read it for you. If something has strong specular, it looks glossy, wet, polished like glass, metal, or water. If it has weak or no specular, i.e. black or dark, it looks dull or rough like dirt, cloth, or old wood. Specular mostly controls the bright spot of light you see when it hits the surface. You don't need to show an example because I'm going to show you an example right now. Sorry. All right. So what we're going to do here is we are going to go ahead and drop our spec. Remember, we blah, 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 blah. That's all, folks. No, remember when we exported our substance textures? What we're going to do is go ahead, and it should have given us, it gave us a base color, a height, a metallic, a normal, and a roughness. Jude, where's the specular map? What's your game, Jude? All right, no, I will tell you where to get the specular map. It's actually there. You just can't see it. So let's drag in our roughness map into a new form, but it's not a specular map. How do we make this into a specular map? Well, I'll tell you how. Hit Control I, and you're done. A specular map and a roughness map are essentially the two different maps, but they read almost the same inverted. So what does that mean? If you're doing asset flips, and most newer games do not use specular maps. Most newer games use a roughness map. A roughness map is essentially the same way that a specular map is. And how do I know this? Because my buddy here is going to tell you now. How does it vary from a roughness map? Again, in the simplest term. All right, super simple. Specular controls how strong the shine the light is. Roughness controls how sharp and blurry the shiny is. So, let's see. A clean mirror has a strong specular. A dusty mirror, strong specular. So right here. So a clean mirror will have a strong specular plus a low roughness. A dusty mirror will have a strong specular and a high roughness. So, this is probably not explaining it correctly, or how I hoped. Essentially, it does read differently than a specular, but most games read roughness more than they do specular. So hopefully it didn't confuse you. My other foot fell asleep. Now, how about that? So essentially, what we're looking at here is a roughness map is, just for the simplest term, how I'm going to explain it to you. If you have a roughness map, invert the map, and that's what you're going to use to tuck into the alpha channel of your normal map to get your light bounce, okay? So remember how I told you if it's pure white, the whole thing's going to shine. This right here is going to help define areas where it shouldn't shine. So if we know the burlap, the canvas, the paper we made should essentially be darker because it doesn't really have a shine. Paper doesn't really have a shine, you know? But the metal here, see the metal? See the grooves in between the metal? That's going to shine. The light's going to kind of bounce in between those grooves and shine back based off our material settings. So what we're going to do here, without explaining too much more, I'm going to hit Control A to select all of it. Hit Control C to copy or edit. Copy. I'm going to come into here. If you don't have a normal map, let's say you didn't get one for some reason, just on that one day you just didn't happen to get one, you're going to come up here and you're going to click this little plus icon in your channels. All right. It's going to give you a map. It's all black. That means the entire picture frame is going to be dull, no light shine. And we're just going to paste that into it. So go to edit, paste. All right. And now we have an area. Now this on this map, it's telling us what parts are shiny, which parts are not. All right. This defines remember, the normal map defines the actual makeup of the object in 3D space. So it helps create the illusion of bumps, the illusion of extruding and extruding. Yeah, it helps define. I was like, am I using the right terms to explain this? It helps define the geometry of the object. It's like a cheat thing, because if we were to try to make all this, that would take a lot of pixel poly count to achieve this sort of effect. You know, but this helps cheat for us. This helps us create definition within the mesh using an image file instead of the actual mesh. And in turn, this helps us define how the light reacts to that portion of the mesh based off that map. Okay. So if you're taking anything from this, just know that what you should take is that the specular map goes tucked into the alpha channel of the normal map. The opacity and transparency map gets tucked into the alpha channel of the diffuse map. And so what we do is we come and plug that in here. So let me go ahead and save that out. This now. We're going to save this with our new alpha channel. If we look at our color, our alpha, don't worry about how this reads here because that doesn't matter for a normal map at least. Hit save. And what we're going to do is reload our normal map now. And now that we have an alpha channel, we're going to go ahead and grab the alpha and plug that into our specular. Now you're not going to see nothing really happen here because with this shader, you don't really see it until you add this shader, and that means you have to add up lights for your scene. We're not doing that today because I don't want to throw more work at you. All right. So what we're doing here is we pretty much set up our material. So when we export this into the game, which we're going to do in the next session coming up, all right, is we have everything set up, our material set up so it reads properly in Neverwinter Nights 2. All right. So there's one more thing we got to do is come in here and then click on this frame, click this little icon called object. And then you should have this Neverwinter Nights 2. If you're following my tutorials, you should have Fresh Looks plugin installed. Click Neverwinter Nights 2, change this from auto to mesh. All right. If you have a tint map, which we haven't created yet, that's where you'll plug it in and type it in here, because there really is no slot for the material to add a tint map. That's more custom based to Neverwinter Nights 2. Our specular color, I tend to always turn this down because Neverwinter Nights 2 reads light horribly to about 0.6 or 7. I'm going to put 7. All right. Our specular level, I'm going to leave this as is right there, and then click transparency match, just in the case that your object you are making does have transparency. It doesn't hurt to have that clicked. If it doesn't, no big deal. It won't do anything. If anything, to have it clicked always helps. All right. And then now that we have that done, we have essentially, let's do a recap. We have our picture frame. We took our picture frame into Substance Painter. We dabbled around in Substance Painter and we created textures for this material. All right. We exported those textures, and in Photoshop, we put them together because they all exported separately, and we put them together. Of those 5 textures, we put 4 of them together to make 2, a diffuse map and normal map. The other 2 we tucked into the alpha channels of each of those maps. Those are the only ones that matter for Neverwinter Nights 2. Okay. There is another texture, another technique that we can use, and it's not actually here. Okay. Oops, that's not it. It's not actually here. It's called an ambient occlusion map, and I didn't export that. Now, I recommend going through and exporting that, and before we begin our next session, I'm going to actually do that. I'm going to show you, well, actually, at the beginning of the next session, I'm going to say, quickly come back in here. Let's export an AO map and put an ambient occlusion map over this. Now, that's going to help you give you more depth to your image, but right now, what we're going to do is go ahead and do one more thing, and then we're going to call it for the session 1. I will do session 2 tomorrow, but right now, let's take the time. I wanted to make sure I explained this thoroughly. I wanted to make sure that everything was understood, because this covers my very first attempt with this account to define textures and how they work with Neverwinter Nights 2. So now that we're done, one thing I want to do is I want to do what I said I was going to do at the very beginning. And I'm going to go ahead and take Mr. Veil here and add them onto my texture. Now I'm just going to pull them in here, drag them to the bottom, bring them in as much as I can. Now I don't mind going out of hand if I have to. Let's like that. All right. I'm going to click enter. All right. Now let me bring them down just a little bit more. About right there. Okay. Click enter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn them off for a second. I'm going to click M. I'm going to draw a square about right there to the edge of the frame, because this is only the part I want him to be on. I don't want him showing onto the picture frame. That's going to be weird. All right. I'm going to, with that selected, I'm going to click on him and hit Control J to cut him out and push him forward to the layer. Turn off the back layer. There are many ways to do that. That's just how I decided to do it in this moment. All right. I'm actually going to delete the old one now. All right. Or maybe I should have actually, no, that's right. That's how it is. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put him on, maybe, just like that. Maybe multiply. Okay. You can mess around with however you want to do it. There's different ways. And there are techniques to make him look like a painting, but I'm going to put it on either on darken or multiply. Maybe multiply, because it carries on some of that structure. Okay. Now, there's something I'm going to do separately to make this look more realistic, and if you want to do this technique, message me on Discord. I will send you these brushes that will help you create this really cool effect, especially if you're trying to do this. This is an added thing. This is not part of the session. I'm only doing this because I want to knock 2 birds out with 1 stone. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mask for Osric here. All right. Remember, if it's all white, that means it's all revealed. So if I invert that mask or make it pure black by selecting my foreground color, making it black, and go to edit, fill, All right. And fill the contents with the foreground color, which is black, my foreground. All right. It hides everything because remember, black hides, white reveals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click my brush by hitting B, and I'm going to come down here to these special brushes that I have called smoke brushes. All right. I use these for a lot of things. Okay. And I'm going to click it here. I'm just going to hit close bracket, or you can right click and turn down your size of your brush. And I'm going to paint in white paint. See, if I'm painting black, nothing happens because it's already all black. But with that mask, if I paint in white, I kind of get that painter's effect, you know. And this is a little trick that I kind of do with some of my I kind of do with some of my postings that I make for Dungeons and Dragons, and I come in with these two brushes and I kind of create this sort of illusion effect of like a painting in the works, or some sort of, you know, like something that kind of gives it that aged effect, that really, you know, effect that I want. All right. And if I want to, I can come in here and turn down him a little bit, so it looks like it's not just full on color. Like, I want to make sure it look like he was painted through the canvas itself. All right. Maybe turn that down to about 90%. It's a really small difference. It could make all the difference though. All right. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to save that off as my new frame D, Osric frame, because it has his name. Might as well have his picture, right? Okay. I'm going to click save, replace it, and then click save because all this is the same here. Come back into Blender. Oops. And I'm going to reload that image now. Just reload it here. And then this is what we're going to put into the game when we get into the game now. That's what it's going to look like in the game. All right. That's our placeable. We're done. So that's what we've done right now. We got that part. So that last portion, this is the part where you want to put your picture in over that little area. And that's going to be the picture that's going to go into your game. We can always come back later and change this out. We can make multiple copies. And when we add the ambient occlusion map, which we'll do at the beginning of next session, we're going to give this picture frame even more shadow and depth. Okay, it's going to make it look much more realistic. So this is where you put your picture. Now, I've AI generated a few for my guild. I've also created some for my guild mates, stuff like that. But this is what we're going to get. So I'm going to go ahead and call this session because I know it's ran on pretty long, but I wanted to be thorough in how I explain how to create a simple placeable. Now, some people might see the length of this tutorial and this video and be like, it's not worth it. Then that's on you. You know, I'm trying to put all the information out there. I'm not saying it's on you because obviously if you're watching at this point, you probably watched it all. That's on them. All right. So usually when someone says, hey, can you do this? I'm like, I already did it, bro. Like, seriously, it's there. It's just you got to dedicate the time. I know we rather watch TikTok videos all day or Instagram or whatever. But if you can't sit down for an hour to learn something new like this, that if you really want to do this, then that's on you at this point. I just want to teach it to get it out of here and onto there because I don't know if I'm going to continue doing this for X amount of years or how long. Granted, EE's coming out and I'm starting to revamp a lot of the stuff because I feel like that's going to draw in a new audience. And I would like more modders because more modders means a longer definition of life. Things go on. Look at Neverwinter Nights 1. You got modding going on every day still. Imagine that with Neverwinter Nights 2 where the performance or things are so much more sharper. You know, graphics are a little bit better, you know, and stuff like that. So I don't know what the parameters are going to hold for Neverwinter Nights 2, but I'm preparing for the EE edition. And hopefully these videos will help you along the way. So this is part 1 of part 2 of our PLCs. The next session, which I will do tomorrow, will cover how to get this into right format or how to put this into the space for a Blender file. And we're going to use this wardrobe as our blend file that we're going to use to override. All right. And I chose something simple like this. We're going to do this. We're going to edit the 2DA appearance editor to put this in to the game, test it in the tool set, go into the game and actually view this thing live. All right. And so the next part is more technical. Doesn't really require a lot of this. So if you're really good at Neverwinter Nights 2 tool setting and stuff like that, that should be a shoo-in for you. It will not be as long as this one is. But look forward to that. So I will put that up tomorrow. Today, I will be uploading this video. Hopefully it's helped a lot. Hopefully it's interesting to watch. Okay. And until then, I'm going to go ahead and sign out now so I can kind of shorten the length of this video, if anything, by a few seconds. But thanks everybody for watching. And I hope you learned something. I hope it was interesting to watch, to say the least. But I will see you tomorrow when we do part 2 for I don't know what I was gonna say there. I say for everybody that watched, I appreciate it. For everybody that I don't care about the likes, comments, and stuff like that. I don't need any of that. I just, as long as it taught something. So I'll see you all tomorrow. And yeah, so bye.